Welcome back, guys. So I'm shooting with the front camera on my phone like I usually do. I switched to the back camera last week, but the majority of last week's video was out of focus, so I'm never doing that again. Unless I can get like a viewfinder or something. So New Year is upon us, which means we have a whole nother year of portable emulators and a whole nother year of me losing all of my money. Now, let me be clear. Just because the devices are listed here doesn't mean I'm going to actually review them or buy them. I'd love to be able to review all of these devices and like get them and use them and do videos on them, but I don't have the money or the connections to be able to get all of these devices. So these are ones that I'm hopeful I can get, but if I'm not, then sorry. I can't make any promises that I'm going to review any upcoming devices aside from AYN's upcoming devices, which are launching sometime soon, at least the Loki Maxes. And speaking of AYN, why don't we just get them out of the way first? I've talked at length about AYN and their devices, so it should be no surprise to you that I'm excited for their venture into the Windows handheld sphere. I pre-ordered both the Loki Max and the Loki Zero, so I get to experience both the highest end and the lowest end models of their devices. The Loki Max retails for $775 right now. I got it at like $685 because there was a $125 coupon that came with it because I was a backer of the Odin. But if you pre-order it right now, you're gonna pay either $775 or $25 for a reservation, and then when the device is ready to ship, you have to pay the rest of it. The Max is gonna use the same high-end processor, the Ryzen 7 6800U, I think is the one they're gonna use, that all of the other high-end devices like the AYN Neo 2 or the AOK Zoe A1 have been using like from their devices last year. So I assume it's going to be very powerful. The Loki Zero, on the other hand, is going to be much more underpowered. It's going to be using a Athlon Silver 3050E processor, and it has a 720p screen compared to the Max's 1080p screen, and it's $250. I got it when it was $200. They used to have it on sale for $200, and honestly, at that price, I think it was more worth it. $250 right now, not so worth it, but if you got it at $200, that's probably worth it for the power you're going to get out of it. It's obvious this is going to be an underpowered device for people who want to play games like Celeste or Cuphead. At least I hope so. With the 720p screen and the low powered graphics, it's not going to be too powerful. The processor that the Loki Zero is using is the same one that's in the Embernic Win 600, and honestly, the Win 600 is a much worse deal than the Loki Zero, because honestly I would argue that the Loki Zero's design, which is the same design between all Loki models, is better than the Win 600's design. And the Win 600 launched at like $375, which is a horrible price for something that expensive. And the Loki Zero right now is like $125 cheaper. When I got it, it was $175 cheaper, which made it much more worth it than the Embernic Win 600. The Win 600 is like the same price. It's like a little cheaper than like the Loki base Loki. And honestly, if you're looking at the Loki Zero, I would say go for like the Loki base or mini models, because the Loki mini is, wait, I'm just now realizing the Loki mini is only $10 more than the Loki Zero at the current retail price. I really only got the Zero just because I wanted to cover it on here and show how it kind of compared to the highest end model. I wasn't really going to use it, like maybe if I'm just on a trip and I only want to play 2D games, which is not likely, but we'll just see, because I don't think I'll struggle playing like older retro games like the GameCube. It should probably be fine. And I did want to cover it on the channel. Like I feel like that would be a cool kind of comparison to do between the Loki Max and the Loki Zero, just to be like, this is the most powerful device, this is the least powerful device, let's see how they compare and what they can play. But yeah, the Loki Mini looks like it'll be a much better deal than the Loki Zero, especially at the Loki Zero's current price at $250, just because the Loki Mini looks like it can play some Wii U games at like a good frame rate, like at least an acceptable one, like Wind Waker HD I'm pretty sure can play on there, while Breath of the Wild I don't think really can, but Breath of the Wild was like the last big Wii U game. So, and the Mini has a 1080p screen, so I mean $10 extra will get you that power bump and the 1080p screen. So if you're currently looking at the Loki Zero, I would go with the Loki Mini or Mini Pro, which is $29 more compared to the $10 more for the Loki Mini. And I'm not even going to discuss the Mini Pro here because I've been talking for way too long already, but both of those would be better options as of right now. If you can get the Loki Zero like on sale in the future at some point, like maybe around the holidays, maybe go for it. But I mean, at that point, you'd probably, if you're paying attention right now, you probably already have one pre-ordered, or you probably want to get one as soon as possible. So I'd say go with the mini or the base. Probably the mini though, just because the base is like a little bit more expensive. Like I don't remember how much it is. It starts at $579. So yeah, if you're looking at the Loki Zero, I'd say go with the Loki Mini or Mini Pro, just because those are cheaper and they're better than the Loki Zero for not that much more money. The release dates aren't as clear, but AYN has been posting regular updates on their Discord server informing their buyers of the progress that the Loki models have made, which is nice because they are a new company and it is nice to get more frequent updates from them when a lot of people don't really have faith in their devices. I'm glad they have people from their company log on and give us updates every so often. It's nice to have transparency from a company like that. I hate that I've been talking about these devices so much, but they are the devices that I've been paying the most attention to over the last few months, and I feel like just because of that, I should talk about the design a little bit. So AYN put up multiple photos of their now established Loki design on their Discord. Some were renders, and more recently they've been doing some with like plastic molds. They aren't the official like final design that you'll get when yours arrives, if you pre-ordered one, or when mine arrives, but they are renders and like representative of what the final product is probably going to look like. Obviously things can change, but for now this is what they look like. I don't know the general consensus between this and the Odin, but in my opinion, this device looks much better than the Odin, because while I love the Odin, it's very like thin on the sides. I do understand the people that wanted an Odin style Windows handheld, because I was one of those people initially, but I am glad to see AYN change up the design a little bit and kind of go with something new for their next handheld. Because while I loved the Odin design, I feel like if they're trying to make a Windows handheld, they should probably do something a little more. And it seems like they're taking inspiration from other devices like AYN Neo, the Steam Deck, like the way they're designing their device. And I think it looks really good. The device is also seemingly more like low profile compared to stuff like the Steam Deck. Like looking at the videos they've put up on their YouTube channel, it seems like the device is much more pocketable, or at least like smaller than the Steam Deck, which is great because I'd love to be able to put it into my bag and like take it with me to school and stuff, and like on transit, public transit and stuff, without having to take the entire case or something as big as the Steam Deck. That's what I was looking at. Look at this gigantic thing. On my community tab, I shared a comparison someone put up between the AYN Loki and the Steam Deck, and it looks like the AYN Loki is going to be considerably smaller than the Steam Deck, which is great, like I said, because I like taking the devices around, and the Steam Deck is just so big. Like, I understand they wanted comfortability, they didn't want to make it too small, but at the same time, it's too big. I don't know. It'll be nice to have the Steam Deck. Like I said this in a past video, I think when I discussed the Steam Deck when I bought it, but it'll be nice to have a device that I can like play at my desk like the Steam Deck, and then when I want to go out and like play something, say in my living room, or like when I leave the house and I want to bring a device to play, I can bring the Loki Max and it won't be as big, or maybe even the Loki Zero, because it'll be smaller and thinner. I'm gonna throw that remote control thing out the window. I'm gonna quickly discuss the Odin 2 just because we don't really know much about it. The only reason I'm discussing it at all is because AYN put the Odin 2 next to the Odin and the Loki in their Happy New Year posts that they put up on their Discord server. So I feel like I kind of have to acknowledge it in some sort, and it said like Happy New Year 2023, so that at least insinuates that they're gonna talk about it and like maybe do a Kickstarter for it, or like an Indiegogo this year. So I'm not saying that it's going to release this year, I'm just saying that we're probably going to hear about it this year. I ran a poll on my community tab a while ago asking you guys what you'd want to see from the Odin 2 in terms of its design, and I put options for the original Odin design, the Loki design, and something new. I was honestly expecting the original Odin design to win, but with 50% of the vote, new design won with a wide margin. For as much as I love the Odin design, and for as much as I think I'm gonna like the Loki design, I do agree that they should go with something new, just because bring something new to the table, like at least make it look a little different so you can kind of distinguish them. Like no regular person on the street is gonna be like, oh, is that an Odin 2? Like if they see it, but still, you should probably make it look a little different. So like when I have them on my shelf, they don't look the exact same. And it is kind of normal for companies to change stuff between their devices. So I do expect to see something different from them in terms of the Odin 2. If not, that's fine. But I feel like they should like change the joysticks, or at least make the like back grips a little better. Maybe they'll learn from the Loki, update the design to add the pros from that to the old Odin design. I'd like to see that. All right, I'm done with the AYN talk. I've done so much free promo for them at this point. Maybe they'll send me a free device. Or a review unit. Probably not, though. Okay, so the Pimax Portal has been shown off by Taki Udon a lot recently. Like, he's done, like, a few community posts and, like, one video on it and, like, a short. I said a lot because I thought he made more than one video on it, but apparently he hasn't. It's apparently releasing relatively soon. Anyone who's backed it on Kickstarter should hopefully get it within the next few months. It's available in multiple configurations, going from $300 to $550 in the early bird pricing, but it seems they haven't finalized the final price for the highest end model, because the $300 version lists its MSRP as $400, but the $550 one doesn't have an MSRP quite yet. It looks like it's going to be much more than just an Android handheld from the videos I've seen from Taki Udon and Retro Game Corp. This looks like it's going to be much more than an Android handheld that runs emulators on it, considering they advertise VR functionality alongside it. The video on their website, though, is pretty weird. Like, it shows off the capabilities of the device, like normal, like multiplayer, hooking it up to a dock, playing on the TV, watching a movie with family, and then they move to peripherals the console works with. They choose to show off the youngest kid holding a large gun for a shooting game, which, like, sure. Like, I was watching that video and I saw that part and I was just like, whoa. But besides that, it was pretty cool. I just find it funny how when showing off peripherals of the device, they do like a VR one, like where they have like the PlayStation Move, like those kinds of controllers, or the Oculus, and then they immediately cut to a kid holding a gun. I just thought that was pretty funny. Imagine they actually sell that. Like, how would you convince your like parents or partner who already spent like $400 on a device like this for you with the dock to buy you a gun, like a gun peripheral? I'm sure that would go over well. Or convince them to just let you buy it in the first place. Anyways, looking at the showcase Taki Udon did, this thing looks very powerful. You can tell that it's very much modeled after a Nintendo Switch, if only that the controllers pop off the sides like they do on the Switch. Just the Switch controllers slide in and this one just pops off. But I'd argue that it looks like the Switch in more than just one way. It might just be that it's designed for multiplayer, but I think this thing just very much resembles the Switch. Like any device has the kind of the two controllers on the sides that you can take off for multiplayer are gonna resemble a Switch because that's where they probably got their design idea from, but it just looks like a Switch. But if we're talking about emulation, it looks like it can play up to Switch games at a good frame rate. It can't play Wii U games, but that's just because there's no working Wii U emulator for Android. Not yet, at least, and I'm not sure who would want to make that. So you're probably never gonna get one. It also has the ability to play AR and VR games, which is cool, I guess. It has a big camera on the back. I don't know if you saw that when I showed the renders, but it has a big camera on the back. It's probably not something I'd get a kick out of, but I mean, hey, it adds to the feature list at the same price as the AYN Odin, so I can't really complain. It's something other people get a kick out of, but I probably wouldn't. Now that that's done, it's time to enter the rabbit hole that is AYN Neo's 2023 lineup. I always kind of make their like lineups sound so like horrible or anything. I feel like I'm a bit too dramatic when it comes to AYN Neo. But I feel like AYN probably currently has more devices coming out in 2023 than AYN Neo does. But yeah, AYN Neo seemingly has 3 devices coming out this year, at least from the ones that we know. So I'm going to be going over them in order of the ones that I'm least excited for and then to the ones that I'm the most excited for. Starting with the AYN Neo Next 2, they claim that it'll use a discrete GPU. What that means, I don't know. I don't know PC parts. So if you're smart, maybe you can tell me. Okay, Google, what is a discrete GPU?
Discrete graphics is a GPU that is separate from the processor. Discrete graphics has its own dedicated memory that is not shared with the CPU.
I listened to that and like fully tried to understand what Google was saying, but I have no clue. But the discrete GPUs are coming from Intel or AMD depending on the model you choose. They say the AMD version will use a 6000 series CPU and a 6000 series mobile GPU, and the Intel version will use a Alder Lake CPU and a DG2 mobile GPU. We don't know anything about the release date or the price yet, but what I can say is, wow, that design looks ugly. Okay, maybe I'm being a bit harsh, but the photo they used at the top of the headline that I showed, that is such an ugly photo. I don't know if I've ever seen an uglier photo of a device. Like that head-on shot, like of just the front, disgusting. I hate it. It's so unappealing. I hate it. But the photos they showed at the bottom or like farther down in the article actually look better. They look a little bit more appealing. I'm still not a big fan of this design. It looks like they're trying to do the touchpad thing the Steam Deck does, but I don't see why. And also it just seems like a stupid feature. Don't worry about that one though, because we have 2 more devices that I'm going to talk about that I think are much more exciting. The next one up is the AYN Neo Slide. So have you heard of the GPD Win 4? You have? Get excited because AYN Neo is making their own version of it. It looks like this thing was supposed to launch in the same time frame as the AYN Neo Air and 2 devices, but obviously that hasn't happened. It was shown off first in May of 2022, and I think that's the last we've heard of it. At least that's what I've found. I haven't found any updates on it. It's said to have a Ryzen 7 6800U processor, which is the same one that's in the highest end devices, like I said about the Loki Max and blah, 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 blah. RDNA 2 graphics, and a 6-inch 1920 by 1080 display. Same thing as in the Loki Max and all the other models except the Loki Zero, I think. The touchscreen actually slides up to reveal a keyboard behind it. And the reason I actually think I like this better than the GPD Win 4 is because when you slide the screen up, you can tilt it forward and it can kind of play like a pseudo 3DS, like without the bottom screen, but with a little touch keyboard. Obviously the keyboard isn't gonna feel that good probably, like I don't expect it to, because it's a keyboard on a device that is for gaming. And it's like a touch keyboard. The keys aren't gonna be freaking tactile switches. I mean, I hope it's satisfactorily. Satisfactorily. I can't say that word. I actually really like the design of this device because I like how it rounds on the edges. It just looks very appealing. The prototype they showed off, the non-working prototype, looks very thick, which I know people like thinner devices for like travel and stuff, but for a device like this, if you can cram that much technology into a device, I'm fine with it being thicker. Like, I know this isn't the final design. There's probably still stuff they changed, like since the last time they showed off a prototype, but I feel like for a device like this, I'd be fine if it was thicker. I wouldn't hate it. I wouldn't love it. I would love it a little more if it was thinner and had like some grips on the back, but at the same time, I don't hate devices that are thicker. The Steam Deck is pretty thick and I love that device. So anything that differentiates this device from others in the market that are similar, like the GPD Win 4, I'm all for. Get it? Just because this device market, like I've said in past videos, has become so saturated that it feels like all of these devices are just incremental updates that are the exact same as the last one. So to see something new is great. All right, so the AYN Neo Flip is a clamshell Windows handheld that was supposedly, like the other 2 devices, supposed to release in Q4 of last year. Obviously, that didn't happen, so here I am talking about it. This device is actually the one we know the least about, but from the one image we have of this thing, that's it. It's a render. And the kind of overall concept, it's probably my most anticipated from AYN Neo at least. We know next to nothing about this thing. There are rumored specs, but they are just rumored and we can't be confident that any of them are true unless AYN Neo has told us anything about it. The only thing we can really be certain about is that it runs Windows because it's a Windows handheld. I really just love clamshell devices, so I'm really excited for this thing. Hopefully they'll reveal more about this thing this year. Can never be too certain, but I mean, why wouldn't they? Unless it's been canceled, which would stink. The reason I'm excited for this thing is because I've always loved, like I said, I've always loved clamshell devices. My first portable emulator was the GPD XT Plus. That was a clamshell device. And the first device that kind of got me traction on YouTube was the 3DS, which is also a clamshell device, which is a device I really like. So I like clamshell handhelds. Seeing AYN Neo seemingly take a jab at what was GPD's market through the Win Max series of handhelds is really cool. I want to see them do something big just because I love clamshell handhelds and I want to see them do a good one. I wouldn't expect extraordinary controls from this thing, but I do hope they're at least usable, like at least good. I've been burned by the X18S in the past and I don't want that to happen again. I want a good clamshell handheld that has good controls, especially since this thing is going to be using Windows. They might put too much stock into the design and not the controls, which would really stink. Hopefully they don't. AYN Neo, please do a good job. Your devices seem great. I hope you can pull it off. Moving on from those, we have one from OneXFly known as the OneXFly. See what they did there with their name, like the OneXFly. It was revealed in September of last year and is seemingly going to have a Ryzen 5 7520U Mendocino CPU, Mendocino, I don't know how to say that. So it's obviously not going to be the most powerful device in the world, but I do have to say, this device looks pretty sick. And Retro Dodo says they're trying to target the Steam Deck, so maybe it doesn't need to be the most powerful device on the market, because Steam Deck is really powerful, and they do have a lot of developers who are making Steam Deck specific versions of their game. But at the same time, not the most powerful thing in the world. Being less powerful has the added benefit of hopefully being less expensive than the higher end devices they sell. They're usually around $1,000. I hope they can make it less expensive, but I never trust these companies. All we know is that it's said to have the formerly mentioned Ryzen 5 7520U CPU and a 6-inch 1080p screen, which isn't surprising considering all of these devices have a 1080p screen, except for the more expensive Pimax Portal that is a 4K QLED screen. The few photos we have of it look cool. Like, I like when devices have the D-pad and the right stick kind of farther in on the device and the left stick and ABXY buttons are, just because I feel like on a device like the Odin, where they're kind of just like straight down from each other, like if a little moved in, they're not as comfortable to use. Like the right stick is probably more comfortable, but the D-pad holding it like is a little less comfortable than I'd want it to be. So having them closer in on the device makes them a little more comfortable to use, in my opinion. One thing I do want to point out, what is going on with those triggers? I hope that's just a nice extension of the one on the back and they're not going with side-by-side triggers, because I would hate that on a Windows handheld. I don't see why they would switch up their trigger design after so long of doing it the same and everyone being pretty much content with it and liking how they do it. So I'm not sure why they would switch it up if they are. So hopefully they're not. But I mean, even if they are, hopefully it's kind of like useful and not just stupid, but you can never be sure. Anyways, let's conclude this. 2022 was a great year for retro handhelds like the AYN Odin, the Miu Mini, and all of those other Ambernic and Retroid devices that released. And I really hope 2023 can live up to that, if not exceed 2022 in terms of how good the portable emulators were last year. There are a lot of promising devices that we already know about coming out this year, and I'm sure there's going to be a lot more that we haven't heard about coming out, so I'm excited to see how those play out. And I know not every device is going to be good. I'm sure there are going to be some duds, but I hope that enough of them are good that makes this year a step up from last year in terms of retro gaming, retro handhelds, and at the end of the year we can look back and say this was the best year for retro handhelds yet. Probably not going to happen, because 2022 was a great year because we had the Steam Deck, the AYN Odin, Retroid devices, Ambernic devices, all stuff like that, AYN Neo devices. But 2023 is looking very promising. But is there a device I forgot about that you're excited for? Is there one I neglected to mention that you're not excited for, that you think is going to be a dud? Is there one that I mentioned that you already pre-ordered or one that you regret pre-ordering? Let me know in the comments down below. I'll see you next week for something. Bye-bye.